So, welcome everyone that is here to the Sunken Bloom stage. This is a place where we host presentations, and we've been hosting presentations here since I believe I want to say February, right? We started February 2000. Over 40 people presenting different topics from architecture to 3D printing, science, neurology, finance, like all of the different industries that you can think of. We've brought people here to this stage and presented their work, their projects. We really empower different people they're interested on and inspire other people presenting about their project, and that might give you an idea about something or some reference to inspire more projects. And we don't know the ripple effects of this, right? But we're interested in creating ripples. So it's actually a pleasure having worked with so many people in different areas on creating this stage. And this is a community effort, right? We are doing this for a community, for bringing this inspiration and knowledge into people, but at the same time, allowing for creators and artists and people to have a stage to talk about what they do. And if you're not aware about the Dive Lives so far, right, we are in the series of fashion. So last week we kicked off the series bringing in the first speaker talking about fashion, and today we're gonna have the second speaker on the series, who is here, Brigitte. Thank you, Bridget, from Paraprint, to talk about what they do. And if you're for those that don't know, and just a heads up, right, people that are joining now, welcome, and you're free to take a seat on the right side. So for those that don't know, Spatial had updates, and for some reason, some of the seats are flipped upside down. But you're free to take a seat and watch the presentation. And speaker, right, for those that don't know, Bridget fashion with design and material futures. Bridget's goal is to create a system of bespoke clothing that can be 3D printed with biodegradable materials. She envisions the future of fashion where instead of predetermined sizes, there are parameters that can make up the fashion pattern, resulting in unique sizes for each individual. Thus the term paraprints, describing parametric fashion blueprints, a combination of parametric 3D printing and blueprints. So thank you, Bridget, so much. And
And for everyone else, hi, welcome. This is my first time giving a presentation in this format, so please forgive me if there's any hiccups. Other than that, really, really exciting. And what I really personally like about presentations is the interactivity. And so for everyone here, please feel free to ask any questions. And then for the people watching on YouTube, any of the highest upvoted questions on the comments, we'll take a look at those as well at the question section. So please add your questions there as well. And right, let's dive into the presentation. So the first thing is the title for this is times figure. Anyone has any idea what I mean by that? Because it's quite cryptic.
I actually have no clue.
Anyone? Feel free to shout out. That's also an option. The mic working for everyone. Okay, I'll give it away. it's about an hourglass and how that comes into play and what it means. I'll talk about it. So for today, if there's one takeaway or what I really want to explain during this presentation is why 3D printing, why 3D printed fashion and sustainable body inclusivity are such a good match. Dare I say perfect even. And these are some of my 2022 projects, and all of them are modular, which means that after I 3D print all of the components, I then weave them together by hand. And so just to see what that looks like, sorry, run walk here, and all of you please join me. Wow, that's an amazing outfit you have. Right, so if you all join, this is what one of the modules look like, and if you then all weave them together, you actually get this chain strap. So here I'm showing how it then becomes a strap that you can either use for decoration, but also functionally. And on the other side, you can kind of see what kind of printer I'm using, and actually it's not a fancy printer, so you can actually do this at home. You don't need anything else but, I would say, almost a cheap printer. So mine is still big for unobtainable anymore, let's say, which is really exciting. And it actually surprised me because I bought the printer at the beginning of this year and I thought it was going to be way more difficult or way more expensive, and it's actually very doable at this moment. So I'll just walk back to the presentation. And so the first thing to do is let's address the elephant in the room, which is what material do you print with? And this is a question I often get asked, and it kind of gets asked by two different types of people. So it either gets asked by people that are really into 3D printing and they want to know what type of material do you print with so that they can then use that material and print it as well. The other type of person that asks this question is someone who is actually really concerned with the environment, and when they think of 3D printing, they don't necessarily make a connection to sustainability, because quite often the material we're printing with is plastic, and that is also the case for me. And so a lot of people then start asking, well, surely it's recycled plastic then, right? And this is one of the things that I find really interesting, and I want to urge people to look at the bigger picture. And so right now we have roundabout a 3-step process, which is we take, we use, and we toss. And one of the downsides is that this is just causing a lot of damage in the environment. And just because, and the Sustainable Fashion Forum really captured it in this image, just because we then replace it with something recycled doesn't mean that our system now is sustainable, because there's so many other issues that's going on. And so kind of these fashion brands are putting out, well, we're using recycled plastic now, so don't worry, you're good, you can keep buying because it's recycled. And I think that is not something that I would want to encourage. And so one of the advocates for change that I personally find really, really good is Naomi Klein. And one of the books, if you're interested in sustainability in fashion, it is an absolute recommendation to read. read, but it's definitely worthwhile. And this is one of my favorite quotes from that book, and I'll read it out. Model demands to avoid collapse is unfettered expansion. Only one of these sets of rules can be changed, and it is not the laws of nature. So that was the depressing bit of the presentation. And if anyone is brave to share what it means. Yes, I like that, Kev. I think you've heard of it then. Ooh.
Well, if I can say it, yes, I've heard it, and it's when you design something based on premise.
Yeah, exactly. So instead of, So instead of going with a set number, you're now designing either with a range of numbers or even with a formula, which is super, super interesting. And so what that means for fashion is on the right here. And let me see if I can get my mouse. Yes, there we go. So you can see my mouse on the screen here. So this is a standard line, let's say, that you can see here. That is your extra small. And then as you move the lines further back, you get your small, your medium, your large, and your extra large, even beyond that. And so you would say, okay, if I now take 10 people in the room and all of them wear medium, then that should look something like this, right? So who thinks you can use the yes and the no on your keyboard, that if you grab 10 people, it should look something along the lines of everyone has a medium, it looks the same, right? Yeah. See if I can turn myself around to see the reaction of the room. So yes key for people that think everyone with a medium should look the same. No for it should not be the same. Okay, cool. So let me share what 10 people look like.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Your screen, it is behind the photo. We can see it.
Oh, that is not good. Mila, do you know what is meant? Because for me, everything seems to be working.
I can see the screen. Alia, were you mentioning that you cannot see the screen that she's sharing?
I see it, but it is behind the photo.
This moving image is for later.
Oh, okay, that's for later. I think she was pointing
So
to the big screen that she shared. As it shows all the icons of people, you can click on the screen that she's sharing to see it full screen. That might help a little bit of visibility.
Everyone good to
can carry on.
continue? Cool. So this is the pattern system, small, medium, large, and that system is very interesting. And so I thought, okay, well, what happened if I actually measure 10 people around me? What does that look like? And that looks like this. That is absolutely nothing like you'd imagine it. And that shows that people aren't symmetrically, perfectly growing the way that fashion and mass production thinks that we are. And so it shows that we're incredibly beautiful, and if everyone has a medium, it doesn't mean that they're the same. And I think we should move away from mass production and go more towards clothing that basically can grow with you and be adapted to what you need. And so this is a research done in 2004 by Siemens, and it was the only research that I could find that was really, really detailed on body shapes and body types. And what she did is she basically, she took 10 different, I think she took between 200 and 300 people to actually look at their body shape, and they got turned into a point cloud. So lost the word. Anyways, they took their point clouds, and then she started analyzing their shapes until every single participant fitted into a certain body type. And it turns out that actually hourglass is only one of the very many different shapes that you can actually see. So you've got the top, the inverted, the bottom, the rectangle, triangle, spoon, oval, diamond, and all of these other shapes are kind of ignored by the current system. And if you're a very small size, you don't really necessarily have that much issue in finding clothing. But as you get to the bigger sizes, it becomes more difficult to find clothing because the way that we grow is not symmetrical. And so that's why I'm thinking it would be much better if you get clothing that actually takes that into account and starts from you as a unique person and moves from there. So let me take you along behind the screen. If you could all follow me. And I want to show what that then looks like in the shape of fashion. So this is one of my projects. I'm hoping we've got everyone, but there's still some people behind. If you click on the floor, guys, you can teleport here.
Yeah, you can click on the floor to teleport, use the W, A, S, and D keys to move around, and then join us here on the backstage where we are showcasing. I'm actually trying to use the bring users to meet, but for some reason it's not really functioning right now.
We got a whole bunch of glitches today. Right.
Yeah, this new update for some reason. Please bear with us, guys.
So for this shape that we have right here, does anyone know what this could be? And just shout it out or put it in the comments. What do you think this could be?
I'll say a band of some sort. like for holding a bag or something, like a chain
Okay.
link, but like 3D printed.
Interesting. So I'll remove this and then we can reveal what it is. It is a kimono. So these two straps are, is the video playing or? Oh.
Thank you in advance. I don't wanna dance. I don't need your hands all over me. If I want a man, then I'ma get a man. But it's never my priority. I was in my zone before you came along.
I can see the video playing now.
Great. So that is the first one. And be careful, guys, because it's possible to actually fall off. So try and stay within the or on top of the red lane. Turn around. So this is the next, and basically this one is slightly different. So what happens here is this has been created with Grasshopper. And that is a plugin for creating different modules parametrically. And I don't know if anyone recognizes this pattern, but it's a Voneroid pattern, which is a type of mathematical formula to make parts of a surface. And so all of these little circles are actually around points that are randomly generated onto a pattern. And same question, what do you guys think that this would be? Want any ideas? A skirt. Shoulder of a sleeve. That is indeed an option.
A mesh of some sort for like a headpiece, I would guess.
Okay, headpiece, interesting. And I think the main idea here is that really this can be whatever you need it to be, which is why I find modular fashion so interesting. And so in this case, mark, this is actually a bra or part of a bra. I don't know if we can turn on the video.
I'm so extremely stoked to share the progress of the shade with you guys. This is the only part that's a little bit iffy. If anyone has any good ideas on how to solve it, let me know. But this side is still a little bit.
And that's still where it is.
Yep,
it's
still some more
work
gluing to
to
do.
progress that one. Right. And then follow me here. We got more interesting shapes. Anyone guess what this one is?
Okay, judging by the connections, I would say this is a modular piece to make like a larger surface, maybe for like a full outfit,
Definitely.
like a shirt, dress.
That is actually correct, but it could, like what Paula is saying, it could also become a bag. It can literally be anything. So let me remove the question mark. So in this case, this is what it looks like. And anyone has any ideas on how many modules are needed to create one dress? 100. Okay, that's a good guess. Anyone else? More? Less? 60? Okay. So to make this dress, you actually need 160. So it's quite a lot more than you'd expect. I'll take you guys. Yeah. Ooh, how long to print them? I think it took about 2 days, 3 days maybe to print them all. And then this is, this is some more recent work. So here are the shapes, and difference here is that it's actually made as a flat shape, and then afterwards you load it into Cura and then mix the patterns onto the shape. And so you can create one 3D model but have very different outcomes out of the 3D printer. So any guesses as to what this is? How about to piece them together? So bag or a purse? Yes, this one finally is a bag. On the video. And so at the beginning, because that video is like the first version of that bag, and that bag, it only had a square and a circle. Very, very simple design. And then these 5 pieces is actually like a continuation of what that then can become. So I'll remove the question mark here as well. This is then what it looks like. If you just, I didn't actually change much to the 3D model, but I used very different infill. So here is, for example, and a triangle infill, whereas with the blue squares, it is more of a line infill. And just by changing the infill, what you can do on Cura, which is your slicer program, before you put your 3D model into the 3D printer, and you can use that to create so much more variation. And actually the variation of the color of filament as well as the infill makes such a big difference to what the end result looks like. So if I remove this one as well. So this is exactly the same thing, it's just using the infill method, which is one of the methods of what you can do with creating the. And so on the left side, you've got your skyward infill, which is actually one of the most, I would say, flexible and most fabric-like. And on the other side, the black infill, it's actually making them really big and multiplying it. So that's the only way to print really strong is multiplying, but you can then actually go quite low on your infill. And then moving to the left. Oh.
No, you're right. It's deserved.
anyone has any clue on what this one is? What it could be?
A bra?
Yes, exactly. So let me remove this one. You'll go. And I would say this is probably one of my favorite projects, just because this one is sorry, is completely different from all the others in the sense that it has been created by code rather than by your general, or what most people usually use, which is slicer programs. And the benefit of that is that the 3D print comes out much cleaner and you can do a lot more things. If I'll take you guys back to the front. Be careful on this part because it's a bit thin. Right. And so this shows kind of how the code works. So on the right top, you've got all of the different you can put in. It's 15 measurements that you need for a bra. And then after that, you can turn on or off the piece that you need to print. And so you only need to print the pieces that you actually need. So the first time around, that will be all of them, of course. But then after that, you can decide, maybe something's broken, I only need to replace that one part, or maybe you grow in certain directions, so you only need to change certain parts of the bra, and that results then in this one, into this one, which is pictures of the video that we just saw. And so that's kind of the 3 different ways that you can create 3D printed textiles. So you can either use a infill, like a slicer program, to create your infill. You can use code to create your infill, and that's by far the most difficult way to do it, and the most time-consuming way. And so the one in between, where I was talking about Grasshopper, and if you haven't heard of that program, definitely check it out. It's very, very powerful. And that's the third way, where you can actually create the infill, but you don't actually need to use code. You can just do it through the interface of the 3D modeling software, basically. And that is it. Are there any questions?
Round of applause. This is happy. Thank you so much, Brigitte, for the presentation. The floor is now open. If anyone has any questions for a quick Q&A, feel free to make your questions. Yeah, Cav wrote in this, very excited to hear about the code part. And actually, yes, if I can be first while everyone's thinking of how to phrase their question, I'm actually very interested on how this coded one, right? It really takes on the piece itself and the size itself, and then creates all of the pieces necessary for the one bra. Can you go a little bit through the process of how it was to generate that?
Yeah, of course. So it is quite a long process. So what you see here, let me see if I can turn it around a bit so everyone sees it. There we go. So what you can see where it is showing, so this is the code. So I'm using realize what you're writing, and all of this, it's not just my work, it's also 2 other people that were working on this really hard. So for me, the most thing that I was interested in is this part that you see where it's putting in formulas to like change the size of your basic fashion pattern. And so usually with most fashion patterns, there's formulas that they say, okay, from here to here, you put in your, I don't know, back width or waist or anything like that. And funnily enough, they actually word it like that because you're meant to measure the person and then use their measurement to make that drawing. But if you just read it as it is, it kind of can set up with those formulas and make it parametric. And so after putting it into, I used Valentina, which is another open source software where you actually put all the formulas, and then we did that just to speed up the process a little bit. And then that gets read into the processing software where the code basically reads, okay, this is the pattern that you have, and all of these different points that you see, so they're all named points in an XY space. All of those points can be moved individually, and they make up curves in the end. And so you say, okay, if I go from point A to point B to point C, draw me a line, and then that becomes one pattern piece. And then that was the part where I still understood the code. After that, someone else made it so that you actually have the connections that correspond to each other. And that was done in such a way, and that goes way above my level. Where
no, but that is fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that goes hand in hand with your vision for the future, right? That people, different sizes, right? We're not necessarily limited to the small, medium, large predetermined sizes, right? You can go straight into how your body specifically is. And this even like, of course, all of the projects, right, show a lot of that. But even this code and like thinking about this idea of like super customizing it, especially when thinking about the tools of artificial intelligence that are everywhere now, right? Like we have Midjourney and DALL-E creating image, GPT creating text. That imagine if there's a piece of clothing that you like and you have the measurements of body, and now you know a tight hat would fit into you, and then you start producing it. Like thinking about the future fashion in those terms is so exciting.
I absolutely agree.
And the floor is open if anyone has more questions for Brigitte.
Why is it so quiet?
Well, because I guess people are thinking about their questions. Kevin just wrote something in the chat. Is it an open source project? The pattern matrix?
No.
So at this point, it's just a file on my computer. So the pattern maker itself is open source, but specifically this for the 3D printer hasn't been made open source yet because it's only for a specific printer that we were using at that point. So it's made specifically for the Prusa, and at this point I don't even own a Prusa anymore, so that's an interesting part of this project. So I think in order to make it open source, it needs to be a bit more user friendly, I guess. So that would be good idea to take it that one step further.
Is there a particular reason why you don't have a producer anymore?
I think Princess and I don't get along. I managed to break
Oh no.
the glass plate twice. So I don't know if I'm the only one that has issues with Prusa, but Prusa is just not an easy printer to get along with.
I love Prusas though. I'm a Prusa family kind of person. I think I have like 4 or 5. I have 5 Prusas, and I don't know. I personally I cannot change it, but I understand. Like I've had people that had issues with it, and they prefer other ones. But yeah, which one do you use?
It might have to. Right now, I use an Artillery, which is quite a cheap Chinese brand, and I think it works really awesome because it's set up for printing with flexibles. It works really well, but then at the same time, if anything breaks, there is no documentation on how to fix it. So you have to kind of go out, watch YouTube videos, hope you understand what the problem is, hope you understand how to fix it, and then kind of, try and make do.
That's great. Yeah, I've tried to fix a bunch of them myself as well. I understand the struggle of like trying to figure out what goes where.
So Bucky is asking if this project is real. Yes, it is real. But wondering, are you talking about the brand specific or any other project?
I think it was just a term like, is this project real? Like damn, nice project.
Yeah, I guess so. No worries. It's called, it was called Valentina at that point. Just type that in. But then it turned, I think right now they're called, I think it's Seamly 3D. And they're still open source. And I think actually, because I'm still reading their fit sometimes, and I think they're working on an implementation where it can turn the patterns that you make into G-codes, and I think they're working on that also for the later beginning, because all of this well, so. Okay, and what inspires me and modular parts, and then what you can see. Okay, that's a very interesting question. So I would say what inspires me is just the fact that you can, it's called design for disassembly, and so designing with recycling and recognition, that's the thing that fascinates me. And so being able to just turn your bag into a bigger bag, and I start usually with an idea in mind of, okay, I want to use actually, so for example, and so far everything has failed, so it's still in the process of trying to figure out what's a good connection, because you can design them in such a way that they actually hold a lot of weight. So for example, the bra has these quite small arrow type connections. They're really strong. Like you can pull on that and it does not let go. Whereas the bag, the blue bigger and circle modules that I showed you before, they're actually quite easy to break. So I think the bag can hold 1.5 kilos, and that is not a lot for a tote bag. But then for other things, so for example, for the kimono, I really wanted to design a kimono, so that was the start of that project where I thought, okay, how can I make that? And how would, like, which connection fits the design, basically. So it can go either way. Let's see, and another question from Mendy. So in the examples, did I print with PLA? So no, actually I'm printing always with TPU. So it's actually already a flexible material. And I think I've printed with PLA probably once or twice, to be honest, which is kind of weird when you're into 3D. But for fashion specifically, and if you want to figure in textiles, it's much more useful to have that flexibility because you want the textile to be able to kind of drape as it would normally. I did try another type of printer, which is an SLS printer, so it's a powder bed printer, and they've got a rubber-like material. That's what they're starting to come up with right now, and it is way more expensive than the printer you can have at home. So I think for a 10 centimeters by 10 centimeter sample, I think I paid £15. So that would make your t-shirt like 400 pounds to print, which is insane. And I think if you if you make like a t-shirt with the printer that I have at home right now with your TPU, I think for a t-shirt you may pay maybe £15 or so, or maybe 20 at most. So it's a very, very big price difference. But what you see there is that you actually a lot more of the materials. So it is definitely something to what you're doing. And more sustainable materials. So personally, I'm keeping an eye on what PHA is doing. I'll type it in the chat as well. That is a type of plastic that is fully biodegradable. So I think that one is absolutely fascinating. The only downside at this point is that it's not flexible. And I think the flexibility of the material, of the filament, that is makes it so incredibly hard to make, to print the sustainable materials, let's say. Like the flexibility is what's the most difficult, because I think there is a lot of rigid materials, so PHA is one of them, that depending on the PHA, I think you can actually print it normally. But at this point, they only sell it as pellets, so you need to make your own filament out of it. And that is definitely next level. And I'm personally not there yet, but I'd love to get there, hopefully within the next year or so. I hope that answered the question. And then Deep Earth, I'm thinking you're probably talking about the PHA. So that's like okay, perfect. Any other questions?
Yeah, if anyone has any time for one more, so feel free to ask one more question. And in the meantime, or if not, I just want to say thank you, Brigitte, so much for this presentation. It has been amazing to see your work and you presenting your work. I personally have seen, thousands of videos, and I'm a big fan. The type of work that you're doing in the experimentation with, these materials, the different connections, dealing with the problem that there's not a lot of people working with, right? And thinking this direction of the future of fashion. And it's mainly the primary reason why we wanted to have you here on stage, talking to the community and showcasing that, because it's honestly brilliant. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, Kev, I'm also excited for the future you'll create. And thank you also for everyone that is here with us today. Thank you for coming to the presentation, asking brilliant questions, honestly. I really like, for example, the question, who asked, I think it was Amy. It was one of the questions that said, if you design the pattern first, the modular part first, uh, or the design first and then figure out the like, that's honestly like a really good way of, thinking. So yeah, thank you everyone for being here. These presentations would be nothing without you guys to be awesome and come here. And Brigitte, like, this is not the end. I hope you can present the presentation again in the future with updates on the projects. By this time, you're gonna have taken over the world and everyone's gonna be wearing your outfits.
I'll have to get and start designing some more outfits then, I guess. Definitely some shoes and jewelry and stuff.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, so thank you everyone. Feel free to leave a heart on the stage. You can do that in the top right corner, and then you get notified every time that we're live here. We're live every Wednesday, and the fashion series is not over. So we're gonna have amazing presentations, and downstairs you guys can see the lineup of who is coming next week and all the other presentations. So today we had Bridget. Next week we're gonna have Jessica Evans, and she works with biodesign. So she uses, all the way from algae and other materials to create fashion, which is also fascinating. And then we're also going to have Michael Toner from 3DM, a company working with augmented reality and 3D, which is pretty great. And Fabienne van der Wenger, which she's also a fashion designer, super talented. And yeah, so feel free to follow the lineup. Thank you again, Bridget, for everything. And I hope to see you guys next week.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Guys.